Organization for Women's Annual Conference 2013 in downtown Chicago. My first job for this plenary is one that I take special pleasure in. I'm going to introduce to you the moderator for this panel, now's Membership Vice President Alendra Letzum. And before I give her the microphone, I want to tell you why the organization is today presenting Alendra with this special award and commendation, because we so appreciate your leadership, your contribution to the movement, your fierce feminism. It says here, the National Organization for Women commends Alendra Letzum for her fierce feminist advocacy and her service as Vice President membership. What it doesn't say here is that I recently felt so completely validated by Alendra. We were in a staff meeting. I think it was a communications team meeting. And I made a remark about, can we do something? Can we do this? And I said, well, we don't have Hermione Granger's time turner, so we're not going to be able to do this. And Alendra, who had been taking notes, looked up and looked around and said, pop culture reference. Good for Terry. And I felt totally validated. It was awesome. Alendra has been at the forefront for 4 years of bringing this organization back. She has worked to redevelop our membership systems. She has worked to streamline the operations inside the office, and she is an amazing speaker and presenter. She has gone to now conferences at the state level and at the regional level and has inspired all of us with her activism and her advocacy. And I think we all owe Alendra a huge debt of gratitude. Come on. There we go. Okay, guys. Now, quick photo op. All right, here we go. You got to hold your You hold it. She said. All right. Okay, yeah. Get this stuff out of the way.
Well, that was a surprise. Thank you all. I just want to share just a little thing. We started this back when we had the conference in Florida. I think, I can't remember what state passed marriage equality. I think it was New York. And we were all at the bar, so as great things do, they happen at the bar. And we decided we were going to always rejoice on Now Things with jazz hands. So if you've ever seen the hashtag jazz hands, it means something really awesome has happened in the feminist community. So I thank you all, and I will share with you now jazz hands. So thank you. All right, it is actually my honor now to introduce the recipients of the Victoria J. Mastrobuono Health Award. Before the 1973 Supreme Court decision of Roe v. Wade, women seeking safe abortions had limited options. Enter the Abortion Counseling Service of Women's Liberation, more commonly known as the Jeanne Collective. What began as a referral system for women seeking abortions, connecting them with trained physicians, grew into the women of the Jeanne Collective performing safe early-term abortions themselves. These women risked arrest and imprisonment in order to provide a service that helped over 11,000 women in Chicago to safely receive, to safely receive medically appropriate abortions. In fact, the police did once raid the Jeanne Collective and arrested 7 women. Fortunately for them, the Supreme Court then decided Roe v. Wade, and the charges against the women were dismissed. Okay. And first we're going to see a video from Heather Booth, but a brief introduction. As a college student in the University of Chicago, Heather Booth founded the Jeanne Collective after she had to help her friend's sister find an abortion provider. Since then, she has worked tirelessly, providing safe abortions to thousands of women, and founding the Midwest Academy, which trains activist organizations to achieve social change. Ms. Booth was also the progressive leader for the Center for Community Change and is on the board of USA Action. And now, may I direct your attention to the screen.
Thanks, Terry, for that introduction and for giving this Victoria J. Mastrobuono Women's Health Award. And especially thank you for your dynamic and deeply committed leadership for women on the most important issues. Even more, thank you all to the leaders of now, organizing to build a better world. I first joined NOW when I was already part of the women's liberation movement in August of 1970, seeing the enormous outpouring of women during the women's strike. You know, the theme then was, "Don't iron while the strike is hot." Now was the leading force of the movement, and you're still the remarkable leaders we've been waiting for. You know that if we organize, we can change the world, and you have been changing the world for the better. I understand you're continuing and even deepening this at this convention as you're developing driven, coordinated issue campaigns for women's lives and women's future. In 1960, when I was in college, a classmate of mine was raped at knife point in off-campus housing in her bed. We went with her to student health, and she was told that student health didn't cover gynecological exams, and she was given a lecture on her promiscuity. We sat with her. They called it a sit-in. And because people organized, of course women can now be covered at student health. But we only say of course because people organized, and there's still such a fight around women's full health coverage. But we can change the world when we organize. In 1965, another friend was pregnant and was nearly suicidal, not prepared to have or raise a child. She asked for help to find someone to perform an abortion. I went to the medical arm of the civil rights movement that I had been involved with and found an extraordinary doctor, Dr. T.R.M. Howard. He performed the abortion and it was successful. A few months later, word had spread and someone else contacted me. They also had a successful procedure. Word spread again, and other women came. I realized there was a great need. We must keep women's health and abortion safe and legal. And women must have a say over whether and when they want a child, and if they want children. So I set up a counseling service, and for anonymity, we called it Jeanne. I recruited others to Jeanne, or the service as we called it, and over time, the women involved in Jeanne began to perform the abortions themselves. Between 1965, when I started Jeanne, and 1973, when Roe became the law, women involved in Jeanne performed over 11,000 abortions. These were remarkable women, Jody Parsons, Ruth Sergel, and many others, captured now on a film, a book, and a play about Jeanne. But abortion is still under threat. Nearly half of all pregnancies of American women are unintended, and about 4 in 10 of those are terminated in abortion. Nearly 1 in 3 women of childbearing age will have an abortion. The procedure is under threat, though. There are violent tactics by opponents to intimidate doctors and patients. There are bans on safe abortion methods that would protect women's health. There are restrictions on low-income women's access to abortion and other health care. There are dangerous laws that jeopardize young women's health and safety. There are so-called crisis pregnancy centers that intentionally mislead women, or personhood measures that would ban abortion, distortions of science that instill fear. Remember those statements saying there's legitimate and illegitimate rape. Refusal clauses that would deny women basic health services. And on all these issues, NOW is there for the fight, for women, for health, for choices and for our lives, for all the women and men who've organized for a better life for women, for all the women and men who are organizing still that women may lead a life with dignity and equality, and for NOW, who helps lead the way, I thank you for this Victoria J. Mastrobuono Women's Health Award. Thank you for all you've done and all you will do and all we'll do together. It is time to organize, to join together, to set priorities and move to build our power, build a movement, improve women's lives, and change those relations of power in the country till women can have the life we choose on equal footing. Thank you, NOW, for making this possible. Thank you for recognizing Jeanne. And thank you for your continuing work for freedom, justice, and equality.
While Heather Booth could not be here, we actually have 2 additional members of the Jeanne Collective to accept the Victoria J. Mastrobuono Award. Another member of the Jeanne Collective, Jeanne Galatzwer-Levy, earned her undergraduate degree in anthropology from the University of Chicago, her Bachelor of Arts in Science Journalism from Columbia College, and her master's degree in biochemistry from the University of Illinois at Chicago. Another STEM girl. Jeanne Galatzwer-Levy, working with the Chicago Women's Graphic Collective, is responsible for the gripping images on the posters that made the Jeanne Collective famous. She's worked on media relations for the University of Chicago, the Alzheimer's Association, and the American Medical Association. And in 2009, Jeanne co-authored the book, The Scientific Basis of Child Custody Decisions, which gives mental health professionals the research summaries that the legal system requires to support their evaluations, and presents legal professionals with a strong foundation for understanding the psychological basis of custody decisions. So, Ms. Jeanne Galatzwer-Levy.
I'm honored to accept this award as a member of the Abortion Counseling Service, Jeanne. We were a collection of ordinary women providing abortions to other ordinary women, 11,000 abortions in just a little over 4 years. Jeanne began when a few women scrambled to find referrals for friends of friends. What made us different almost from the beginning was the decision to make the experience of each woman who sought our help positive and empowering. Within a short time, that meant every aspect: the first return phone call, counseling, sitting in the waiting apartment, driving to the location of the abortion, assisting or performing the abortion, and follow-up. All of it was done by women of the service. After 7 of us were arrested, we regrouped and continued to provide abortions until Roe v. Wade ended the need for Jeanne in Chicago. The service was a small group of women. At our busiest, we managed with only about 30 active members. Our monthly meetings fit into living rooms. We all knew each other. We were students, young mothers, working women, single and married. We were passionate about what we did. We had come to Jeanne believing in a woman's right to choose when and if to have children. Jeanne turned that belief into action. I think it was the work that fostered our passion. It was seeing women faced with that choice and the incredible complex reality of their lives. It was learning the circumstances that were part of the decision to terminate a pregnancy: age, family support, race, illness, finances, ambition, husband, lovers, other children, parents, the urgency to weigh all of this in a small window of time. That made us passionate. What was extraordinary about the women who formed Jeanne was our ordinariness. Some of us went on to become activists, some to lead very private lives, some stayed in healthcare. No mold fits the former members of Jeanne except one. We are all committed feminists and all proud of having been there and done what was needed. We learned that ordinary women can do extraordinary things. Thank you.
Y'all are going to have to get up again. I'm just going to let you know. After working with the Jane Collective, Eileen Smith found her passion and became a nurse. And when her 2 children were diagnosed with Wilson's disease, which is an autosomal recessive genetic disorder in which copper accumulates in the tissues and may necessitate a liver transplant, she became engaged in the Wilson's Disease Association support group. She currently works as a visiting nurse here in Chicago at the VA hospital and is one more of our recipients of the Victoria J. Mastrobuono Award.
I would like to thank the National Organization of Women on behalf of the over 100 members of Jane. I was 21 in 1971. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. I'd been to Woodstock, I organized against the war in Vietnam, marched with the Black Panthers, marched for women's liberation, but I was working a low-paying job, had a small studio apartment on the north side in Chicago, and I was with a boyfriend who I knew wasn't right for me. So when I found myself pregnant, I was sure that it was not the right time for me to have a child. I was really scared. I didn't have enough money to go to New York, where abortion was legal, and I saw an ad in an underground newspaper in Chicago that said, "Pregnant, need help, call Jane." And of course I called Jane, and when they called me back, they explained that they could help me get an illegal abortion in Chicago. It was going to be done in someone's apartment. I was going to be blindfolded, and it would cost $300. But they said if I wanted to, I could pay that over time. It scared me so much to think about doing this, but I felt like I didn't have any other choice. So I went ahead with it, and it turned out to be one of the best decisions I ever made. The experience was far from horrifying. It was one of the most positive experiences I ever had. Every woman in Jane who talked to me explained everything that was going to happen to me. The apartment was actually clean when I went to it. Somebody sat and held my hand and explained everything that went on. They called me days afterwards to make sure I was okay. Instead of making me feel like I was a victim having an illegal back alley abortion, they made me feel like I had some control and that I was part of the process. So, you know, I wanted to become part of this group. This group was definitely for me. So I joined Jane, and over the next 2 years I worked as first a counselor, then I worked doing scheduling, returning phone calls, and then ultimately assisting with the abortions. Jane changed my life. After Jane disbanded, I continued working with women's health and then went on to become a nurse. It's more important than ever that we keep abortion legal, safe, and available to everyone. And if anyone hasn't read Laura Kaplan's book, The Story of Jane, I highly recommend it because there's a lot more information about the group. But thank you so much for this award. I appreciate it.
And before we go on with the rest of this particular plenary, I would like to ask Cheryl Chastain to come and join me up here on the stage, because I want everyone in the room to become acquainted with the 21st century face of compassionate abortion care who is under threat and harassment and intimidation right here in Oak Park, Illinois. We just want to take 60 seconds for Cheryl to give you a little flavor of what she is facing today. And I also wanted to just make the point that we have to have the back of women like Cheryl, Dr. Cheryl Chastain.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Cheryl Chastain. I'm a family practitioner here in Oak Park, Illinois, and I'm also the primary provider of abortion care in Wichita, Kansas, at the clinic formerly owned and operated by Dr. George Tiller. Thank you so much. I want to give you just a quick flavor of what it is like for those of us who are seeking or providing abortions in low access states, because 40 years after Roe v. Wade, we have become a nation of abortion haves and abortion have-nots. The patients who seek abortion, who seek care from me in Kansas, have come from up to 3 hours in a radius around Wichita, because there are no other clinics within that area. They have been forced to go through a 24-hour state-mandated waiting period. After they receive an ultrasound performed by me, the physician, they have to wait another 30 minutes. They come to me with misconceptions. They ask, is this going to make me sterile? Is this going to make me, am I killing my baby? Things that have clearly been put into their heads by somebody that is out to shame them or out to terrify them. The personal price that I have paid for working in Wichita has been high. I have been picketed at my personal office here. There are death threats directed at me on the internet. The local protesters have tried to make it impossible for me to continue to do the work that I do. They have harassed my medical partners, my patients, and my landlords. So these are the conditions under which I'm working. My colleagues tell me, I cannot believe that you're doing this work. They say, I thank you for doing it, but I could never do that. I tell them sometimes that the fact that you are not doing this work is the reason I have to. If everyone would step up, no one would be in danger. Thank you very much.
And may I just say that the National Organization for Women has your back. And may I also just say that some time ago, Hillary Clinton was speaking about LGBT rights internationally, but I think that her words also apply to women's reproductive health rights. And what she said was, and I don't have it in front of me, so I have to paraphrase a little bit, but all of us are born with certain inalienable human rights. And governments do not confer rights on us. Because we exist, we therefore have rights. And because we exist and we are human, governments are bound to protect our rights. And the National Organization for Women will not stop until we have a government that protects all of our rights. Dr. Chastain's and her patients and all of those that depend on her. Thank you.
So there's only really one person I know who could follow that, and luckily I get to introduce her. If there can be a godmother of the Violence Against Women Act, it is now's one and only Patricia, I'm gonna mess this up, Blau? I've always called you Pat. Patricia Blau-Roos. For nearly 20 years, Pat has coaxed, cajoled, wheedled, and strategized with key members of Congress to pass the original $1.6 billion VAWA that has saved so many lives. And she has continued to see that that landmark law is funded and reauthorized every 5 or so years since then. One of Pat's best-known strengths is her ability to energize and excite activists in a common cause. To pass the original VAWA of 1994, she assembled one of the largest advocacy coalitions ever, upwards of 2,000 organizations, to pressure Congress to pass this critical legislation. This year, she was a key force behind passage of an inclusive reauthorization of VAWA, helping to build bipartisan support for it in spite of the efforts of the right-wing House leadership to derail the law altogether. It has been joked that Pat Roos was so effective in bringing along recalcitrant legislators on VAWA that she must have become Republican Senator Orrin Hatch's girlfriend. Those of you who know how conservative the senator from Utah really is know that Pat's commitment and success has been essential in our campaign to end violence against women. Coming to Washington, D.C. in 1979 as a single mother of 3 boys, this former junior high school teacher has distinguished herself as the dean of the women's rights lobbyists in Washington. She's been an activist for 4 decades, with 30 years as a professional lobbyist. Among her many efforts was one that made the 1996 welfare bill less punitive by adding provisions to better assist and protect poor women from family violence, and to push back against the dreadful family cap, which would deny poor children assistance under certain conditions. She was instrumental in passing and protecting civil rights laws, especially Title IX, and she has led coalitions that passed pension reform, COBRA health insurance coverage for those who lost their jobs, improvement in child care programs, and the law that protects women from abortion clinic violence, which we know as FACE. For 10 years, Pat was the director of the DC office of the now Legal Defense and Education Fund, now known as Legal Momentum. She shared her expertise as a senior policy analyst with NOW from 2002 to 2009, and she continues as a senior advisor on a range of issues. Although she is now allegedly semi-retired, Pat continues her legacy as a force to be reckoned with in her work with the 1 Billion Rising campaign, which was an international effort to end domestic violence. We all owe her an immense debt of gratitude for her nearly 40 years of dedication to protecting women and advocating for their equal rights. And as such, she is the recipient of NOW's Lifetime Achievement Award. Ah, here it is.
I often cry during speeches, but I've now started my speech crying. Thank you, sister. Thank you. Thank you, sister, doctor, sister. So there you are. All of you who know me know I never do anything alone, and yet, so why am I just right here alone? So I made a list of all the people that theoretically need to be up on the stage with me, because I always operate with a coalition and a crowd, and I give a lot of orders, but we also have a lot of fun. So Marion, my friend from Montana, wanted to know where my speech was, and I told her I just had my laundry list. The first person who needs to be here, of course, is my mom, for good and bad reasons. When I came here in 1979, every year until she passed in 98, she asked me when I was going to get a real job. And so I need us all to give a hand for my mom and all the moms. Yes, because it is a real job, and it's hard, and we haven't finished yet. Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom. And then my dad, who taught me sports and then had to tell me I couldn't play on any of the teams. So, Dad, you know, I got my revenge, Title IX. Then to my 3 sons, I came here, they were 8, 9, and 10. I don't remember any adult supervision of them. They spent their life at the creek or the pool. They've grown up to be stunning human beings. They married feminists, and they're raising feminist grandchildren. They came with me to all the marches, the gay marches, the ERA marches, the abortion rights marches. They've stood up in the Scouts and everywhere they go against homophobia. My middle son is much like me. When he stands up and to combat homophobia, he announces he's a lesbian, which confuses everybody. So here's my son. He told his fiance when she asked if he'd be comfortable with her 2 lesbian friends, he said, "I was raised a lesbian." I was born as a feminist in Bozeman, Montana, and don't ask me why I'm there, and it's probably why I'm not mentioning my ex-husband. But I wish all my Bozeman, Montana people were here. In 1972, we entered the Bozeman Parade with our ERA banner, and we marched behind the prize bull. And so first of all, we had to get around the bull and step through the poop. And who knew that would be the story of the rest of my life? But thank you to Montana, because, as again, my mom, well, Patty, that you were just a big puddle in a small pool. And so now, Mom, I'm a big puddle in a big pool. So there we go. I went to Colorado, and I want to thank Pat Schroeder, and I want all the Colorado women here. We've started, the backlash started when I was in Colorado, and they decommissioned the Women's Commission, and they said the battered women's shelters were secret places where we recruited lesbians, and maybe they were. Who cares? I came to Virginia in 1979 and it hadn't ratified it, so I couldn't step on the ground. So for now, however many years that is, 34 years, I've had to walk about 2 inches above the ground because you cannot go to a state that didn't ratify the ERA. But I want to give special recognition because right now in Virginia, we have a fight on our hands, and we are going to win. There are terrible, vicious, horrible people who have taken over Virginia. It wasn't all that good to begin with, but we have some really bad characters, and my partners. I see Marge and Diana, and where are you? Just wave. We have an election. Oh yay! We have an election this fall, this November. We're weird. We do our elections in off years because we're a little off. And I want all of you, and I said this the other day, but I'm going to say it again. I want all of you to sign up to help in Virginia and also in New Jersey. But even if you can't, I need you to sign up to make Marge and Diane and I feel better. We need to go home to Virginia. We have entire now conferences coming. You guys better watch out. So, and then I want up on this stage. So move over, make a little more room. I want women who were my mentors and my teachers, and I want Bella and Betty here, and they passed. But I want Gloria Steinem on the stage. I want Ellie Smeal on the stage. I want Patricia Ireland on the stage. I want all of the current now board and now officers on the stage that sustain me. They not only led the way, but they had the back of us that were younger. That was, I know in the books it doesn't always say that, but there was not a moment, and I really used to be young, but there was not a moment when we were doing stuff that our mothers didn't have our back. And so I have pledged then to be a mother and to have the back of all of you in this room and our daughters and our granddaughters who come. Now I want everybody on this list. I want everybody on this stage who gets all my emails, and if you don't get them, how many of you get my emails? Ha ha! But look, there's some more people whose emails I've got to get. We're always doing something, and so I have something called Pat's List that's I share, but it's just the hard workers that I when there's an issue going on, that I send you an email, and sometimes they're funny and sometimes they're serious. I want. This is really hard, but I want to thank everybody, because it sounds sort of selfish. I want to thank everybody in this room and all across the nation in my, whatever seems like an eternity, over 40 years of advocacy, whoever called or wrote or emailed or said thanks. Not because I was so insecure I needed it, because that thank you was I'm going to use military word. It was a power drink. It was the ones that keep you up for 5 hours. It was a bullet in my armory, but that's so warlike. It was ammunition. It was a sustenance. And so sometimes we all forget but that every thank you, everybody who picks up the phone or sends a letter, and my friend Jackie gave me a physical card. I didn't know anybody gave cards anymore. But it's not because we need it, it's because it keeps us going for the next one. So I want all those people here. I want everybody from all my old jobs, the Women's Equity Action League, the Now Legal Defense Fund. I want everybody who cares about the Violence Against Women Act up here on the stage getting my award. I want everybody who has how many of you have ever gotten COBRA, which is the continuation health insurance? I want all of you up here. I passed that puppy. Everybody said we couldn't do it. What if everybody who got COBRA sent $5 to Now? We'd be effing rich. All right. I want all the women who are doctors, lawyers, athletes, all the women who can now get emergency contraception off the shelf, all the women who can get child care or a child care tax credit, all the survivors of violence who've had a shelter to go to, all the women who've gotten pension equity. And now I have to stop because I got so busy I forgot to make the rest of my list. But I want all of you up here in spirit, and if you aren't any of those people, then there's something great and grand about you. I want everyone who's going to run for office up on the stage here with me, and I want everyone who has run for office and won or lost. But what I really want is to thank now, because you've been my sustenance, and you've given me a reason to get up every morning and be terminally cheerful. You have, and drive people crazy with that. But you've given me a meaning and a purpose to my life, but my work's not done. So this isn't a lifetime achievement award. It's on my way to lifetime, and so I also want to thank every one of you for being here and being part of this.
Sure. Come up. Just a quick point of personal privilege.
Just a point of personal privilege. I have the hugest feminist crush on Pat because she really is not only the godmother of VAWA, but godmother to so many of us young feminists who are not just young in age, but young in other ways. And she really does help us so much, and she is able to work with all different types of personalities and people and is always teaching us. So thank you, Pat, for being all of our feminist crushes.
And for those of you who don't know who that was Jeanne Arifa. She is a member of the NOW board. She was a member of the NOW New York Young Feminist Task Force, which has grown into NOW's first ever virtual chapter for young feminists and allies. Okay, now on with the show. Now, Maria, I got a note right before I started on how to pronounce your last name, and it's totally different from what I've been practicing. So I'm just gonna go with it. Okay, Maria Pesqueira. Okay, Maria Pesqueira has over 2 decades of leadership experience in the human service arena, bringing expert perspectives to areas including strategic planning and management, program development, communications, fundraising, and public health. And in 2000, Pesqueira was named President and CEO to Mujeres Latinas en Acción, one of the longest-standing Latina human service organizations in the nation. Prior to working with Mujeres, Maria was the Director of Development for the National Museum of Mexican Art, and during her time there, she grew the museum's Resource Development Office and completed its $7.5 million capital endowment campaign. Maria has been the recipient of a wide range of prestigious awards, including Orba's Award for Nonprofit Financial Management Excellence, the 2012 Making a Difference Award by the Chicago Women in Philanthropy Society, and our very own NOW's Women Who Dared Award. Please help me welcome Maria Pesqueira.
Wow, thank you very much. I want to start with a thank you. A thank you to all the women who paved the way and fought for my rights and the rights of my sisters who are here with me today and will be here in the future. In my words, mil gracias, 1,000 thank yous. Well, we are here on the 4th of July weekend at the National Organization for Women's Conference. Ahora, now. And I ask, what does the future of the feminist movement look like in our nation? The origins of the feminist movement was about inclusivity, equity for women. Today I ask, what does the feminist movement need to be aware of in order for this work towards equity mean equity for all women? I'm here again as a thank you. I'm meaning no by asking this. It's a question of all of us. It's a question to me as a feminist. It's a question to all of us and this future. Again, in my humble ways, I think, working with a women's organization on a day-to-day, I've thought about this and I've pondered on this, and I believe that there are 3 key areas impacting the future of feminism and the inclusiveness of this movement, and that would be immigration reform, the Latina demographics, and the role of youth in our movement. I know many of us know the demographics, so I won't go into too much depth. I'll just say a couple of things. First of all, in this nation, we know that 14.2% of all people in this nation happen to be of African American descent. We know that 16.4% of them happen to be Latinas. We happen to know that. We also know that by 2039, racial and ethnic minorities will be the majority, helping to support a disproportionate white elderly population. So, Pat, I was not meaning you, Pat. Oh, okay. But, so as we think about this, really, we've got to think about then what does that mean specifically for, in my community, the Latino demographics. I say that because we happen to know that it is the fastest growing. We've all heard that data on how that racial and ethnic landscape is and how it'll continue to change dramatically. So I'll mention this. At the end of 2011, there were 23 million Latinos of Latin American origin, U.S. citizens, not immigrants, U.S. citizens, who are 18 years or older. And there will be 500,000 new voters turning 18 every year for the next 12 years at least. Another way to say it is every month for the next 2 decades, there will be 50,000 Latinos turning 18 becoming eligible to vote every month. So I took a look at, well, what does that mean for names? What does that mean for the most popular names in this country? You know, we all hear, that certainly I have a niece whose name is Victoria Smith. She is a Smith. She happens to be half Latina. But what are the most popular names in this country? Well, that happen to be Spanish language surnames. Garcia is number 8. Rodriguez is number 9, Martinez is 11, Hernandez 15th, Lopez is 21st, and Gonzalez, my maiden name, happens to be 23rd. So I say this, again, because of these changing demographics, and let's look at it again from an election perspective. The elections that took place in November showed indeed the power of the Latino-Latina vote has to influence an outcome. And amongst them, it was the Latina women who came out in the highest number. Had it not been for Latina women, we would not, we would not have the outcomes that we had today. So again, let's put that in perspective of sort of the future. But let's also talk about immigration as a women's equity issue. Immigration reform is not often considered to be a women's issue, but in fact, it is a critical part of the fight for women's equality. The recent momentum behind comprehensive immigration reform is exciting, but has been missing a focus on the issues that directly affect women, girls, and families. When we provide opportunity and equality for immigrant women, we improve the lives of all women. Currently, women happen to comprise 51% of all people migrating to the U.S. Another way, when you look at immigrants, the majority of them are women. 51% of immigrants are women. So, preserving the rights of undocumented workers by bringing them out of the shadows will support justice and dignity for all workers. Now, I heard a few, I think Pat mentioned it. I heard of some of the things that happens to our sisters, our hermanas, our immigrant women. I know of women, or I think we were talking about that. I know of women who have been raped in the workplace and refuse to even talk about it because they are undocumented. Whether or not they know about the U visas or they know about VAWA, they refuse to talk about it because they just want to put food on the table for their children. I know of women like Laura who said to me, who happened to be pregnant, and shared with me the fact that she is paid less than minimum wage in her job. She happens to work at a state building, in that same building where human rights are discussed. So without comprehensive immigration reform, we can't move to the next level of equity for all women. Youth. I want to talk really quickly about the importance of youth in our movement. There are 46 million young people 18 to 29 years of age who are eligible to vote. 21% of all eligible voters are between 18 to 29 years of age. Broken down, 62% of them are white, 17% are Latino, 14% are African American, 4% are Asian American, 3% more than one race, 1% is Native American. We have to make sure we are inclusive of that youth in our work. I mentioned this as one example. We're talking about immigration reform. A few years ago, they said immigration reform is dead. Let's not talk about it. It's not even on the table. If it were not for the courage of our dreamers, of our young dreamers, it would not be on the table. And it is going to happen because of the courage of these young folks. And we do need to encourage and support that creativity and that work that happens. So I ask, are we inclusive of the youth in our movement? Are we inclusive of our sons in this movement? Are they themselves calling themselves feminists or not? My son will be at Middlebury in the fall, and we happen to be in a parent orientation, and up comes Eve Ensler's name is an alum, and one of the guys next to him said, "Who's Eve Ensler?" And he turned around and he said, "Vagina monologues." So I said, "Okay, we're moving forward. This is good. This is good." So I asked that. I ask, in the feminist movement, do we have the tools to be inclusive of that? Are we making sure that we have youth in leadership roles? Are we making sure that we have immigrant women or Latinas in leadership roles? Are we sure that we are representative of the demographics of today, and are we investing in the future? I happened to go through Twitter this morning, and I saw some of the tweets that were taking place. I know it's happening. And it was interesting because as soon as I talked about tweet to some of the ladies in our group that were here this morning, it was very clear who was tweeting and who was not. Are we using social media, right? Are we? And are we learning to use social media so that we can communicate with each other via multi-generations? I am not up here at all whatsoever to preach. I am up here looking at the facts and statistics of who we are as a nation and what is happening in our nation. And if we want this movement to continue to work, how do we reach across, communicate with each other via hold hands virtually, or will we wait for things to dissipate? I know that now does not wait for things to dissipate. I know things will continue to move forward, and I say this as we walk out of this conference tomorrow. What are we doing to be inclusive in this movement and seek true feminism, which is about equity? Thank you.
For some lucky few, the activist flame gets kindled early. Dr. Norma Guillard is one of them. At the ripe age of 15, she joined the Cuban literacy campaign and has thankfully remained, being a significant contributor to debates on race and racism in Cuba. A social psychologist from Santiago de Cuba, and one of the first Cuban women of her generation to call herself a feminist, Dr. Guillard works on issues relating to gender, race, sexual orientation, diversity, and identity in Cuba and the Caribbean. She has co-produced several documentaries, including the notable film Living to the Limit, which documents the lives and struggles of 5 HIV-positive individuals. Dr. Guillard is an advisor to both the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization and the United Nations Development Program on the issue of gender in the prevention of HIV/AIDS. She's also a principal collaborator at the National Center for the Prevention of AIDS and the National Center for Sex Education, an organization that works to end homophobia and create civil unions in Cuba. And if that weren't enough, she's a founder of OREMI, the leading organization of lesbian and bisexual women in Cuba. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Norma Guillard and Dr. Guillard's translator, Sonia Dueno, from North Manhattan now.
Muchas gracias. Realmente, ante una organización tan fuerte como me ha resultado encontrar aquí, a NOW, con tantas mujeres dispuestas, listas para hacer y para transformar al mundo, yo, como decimos, me quito el sombrero.
Thank you. I am before such a strong organization, doing so many things, and because of what you do, I take my hat off. So many women that are willing to transform the world, some new to the cause, and others already on the road.
Quiero transmitirles el saludo desde la organización que en Cuba es una fuerza y que hoy me hace poder decirle de mí tantas cosas.
I'd like to send my greeting to you from an organization in Cuba that gives me such strength and allows me to work.
La organización o la Federación de Mujeres Cubanas.
It's the Federation of Cuban Women.
No voy a decirles que en un momento como este me siento muy nerviosa. Todo el día me lo he pasado preocupada pensando cómo actuar pero mujeres, cuando nos den la posibilidad de tener un micrófono, no podemos perder la oportunidad. Es la que tenemos para ya comenzar a decir que estamos empoderándonos.
She's been nervous all day thinking about how she should behave, what she needs to say. But the mere fact of being in front of a microphone is an opportunity that we should take forward and use it to empower.
Para comenzar un poco de mi historia, como ustedes pudieron ahí escuchar, la fuerza inicial la tuvo mi participación en la alfabetización. Ese fue como el motor impulsor que desde ese momento que fui maestra no he podido dejar de serlo, de enseñar y de seguir aprendiendo todos los días.
As you heard from my introduction, I'll speak a little bit about my life history, but the impetus of it, the motor behind my life has been the work with the Literacy Project.
En Cuba tenemos una lucha constante, fuerte, dura, con más de 50 años de bloqueo, que en la práctica nos hace cada día ser más fuerte, más creativa y más dispuesta.
In Cuba, we have a tough fight. As you know, for over 50 years, we've suffered the blockade, but that gives us strength to move forward every day in creative ways.
Las mujeres en Cuba podemos decir que nos ha tocado un papel muy duro, enfrentando realidades difíciles, pero no sentimos que hemos logrado todo lo que queremos.
The women in Cuba, we have tough realities, and we have accomplished a lot, but we still feel that we have not done everything we can.
Si bien es cierto que hoy por hoy yo me encuentro entre el 66% de mujeres profesionales, la realidad dice que no hemos logrado todo lo que queremos, porque sin embargo solo tenemos un 34% incorporada al poder en las partes de las direcciones.
It is true that I am part of the 66% of professional women in Cuba. However, there is inequity in that only 34% of us are in leadership positions.
Estamos conscientes de que todavía nosotros tenemos brechas de géneros que enfrentar. Todavía tenemos fuertes situaciones difíciles que nos hacen sentir que mujeres en Cuba nos encontramos con un techo de cristal o con un piso pegajoso. ¿Saben ustedes qué cosa es un techo de cristal o un piso pegajoso?
So we in Cuba, the women in Cuba still encounter gender gaps and obstacles to overcome. And in those situations, we find that we have a glass ceiling, or better yet, a sticky floor. And do you know what this is?
Queremos hacer muchas cosas, no podemos más que reconocer que tenemos una subjetividad fragmentada, porque estamos excedidas con nuestra disposición de hacer y desarrollar socialmente, pero seguimos a veces atadas al cuidado de la mamá, de la suegra, de los hijos, pendientes del esposo, y eso realmente a veces no deja que despeguemos como merecemos.
So we have a fragmented reality in that socially we have the role of caretaker in the family, with our parents, with our spouses, with our children, and that stops us from developing fully.
Luego, en el momento ese en que nos dan para desarrollar una responsabilidad en la dirección, seguimos estando en la fase de asesoras, pero no en las decisiones como quisiéramos.
So in the moment that we are given the possibility of developing, we are not given leadership positions, only advisory positions.
Nos seguimos encontrando con que el paradigma masculino sigue siendo considerado como algo natural. A veces tenemos las responsabilidades y las hacemos como si fueran con bigotes.
The masculine paradigm is seen as natural, and so then we are given the role of wearing a mustache in our positions.
Es que nos debatimos entre esa que queremos ser afectivas, comprensivas, empáticas, amorosas, pero a su vez exigentes, autoritarias, exitosas y competentes. Y todos esos conflictos a veces no nos dejan tener una dirección con innovación.
So we are between, and we debate between being the empathetic, compassionate, giving and loving, and at the same time we are expected to be authoritative and decisive.
Sí. Nos queda como trabajo fuerte este hecho de encontrarnos con las posibilidades de mejorar las situaciones y las condiciones de trabajo que nos permitan realmente despegarnos de ese piso.
So we now strive and we live to work to improve what we do and also to find ways to unstick us from that floor.
Yo realmente no puedo contarme entre la mayoría porque mi piso es menos pegajoso, tanto es así que mírenme donde estoy y en la tribuna que estoy.
I don't consider myself part of the majority because my floor actually is not that sticky. Look at where I am and look how much I have achieved.
He podido enfrentar luego de esa energía que gané cuando salí a dar la luz de la enseñanza, es decir, a la alfabetización, sentí que gané alas que hasta hoy no siento que voy a parar de volar.
I've been able to face with the light that I have received in the literacy project, and it has given me the freedom, and I've been able to spread my wings, so I feel I cannot stop.
Y es por ello que me enfrento a temas tales difíciles, casi de alfabetización, como son la discriminación racial, que en Cuba todavía tenemos que seguir reconociendo que la tenemos, la discriminación, la lucha contra la homofobia, el trabajo con el HIV y todas estas tareas fuertes, me siento con el deber de enfrentarlas.
I face difficult topics also in Cuba. We have to be clear and accept that in Cuba, we have to admit that we still have the issue of racial discrimination. We are still working on the issue of the homophobia, on HIV, and all of these tasks I take on.
Nosotros sabemos que aún en Cuba el imaginario de género sigue siendo asociado a las mujeres para el espacio privado, y eso nos pone ante metas tales como crear centros de talleres para desarrollar a las mujeres desde lo técnico y desde el empoderamiento.
So we work with the imagined gender that we have in our private spaces, i.e., we're supposed to be equitable, yet in our private spaces, it's still the patriarchy that exists. So we have been creating workshops to develop women, to explain to them how they can break from that.
Tenemos que aprender a dirigir de una forma innovadora. Y esa es una recomendación que tenemos a diario como una meta máxima a cumplir.
So we're learning to, and we are learning how to direct in an innovative way, and that's a mission that we have to accomplish.
Pero para lograr todo eso, lo primero que tenemos que tener es conciencia de que nosotros tenemos que liberarnos.
But to get to that point, the first thing we have to do is have the consciousness that we have to be free.
Allá en Cuba tenemos una teórica antropóloga de muchos años, Leticia Artiles, que nos da consejos y yo quisiera pasarle a ustedes algunos de estos consejos.
We have a veteran theorist in Cuba named Leticia Artiles, and she has a series of advice that she would like to share with you.
Ella nos dice, haz tú una pausa de 10 minutos por cada 2 horas de trabajo a lo máximo. Y repite esas pausas en tu vida diaria y piensa en ti.
Take at least every 10 minutes of your... ¿Cada 2 horas?
Cada 2 horas.
Take 10 minutes of every 2 hours and as a break and think of yourself.
Aprende a decir que no sin sentirte culpable o creer que lastimas a alguien. Querer gustar a todos es un desgaste enorme.
Learn to say no without feeling ashamed. ¿Y la otra?
Querer gustar a todos es un desgaste enorme.
It's a waste of energy to try to please everyone.
Plantea tu día, pero deja siempre un buen espacio para cualquier imprevisto, consciente de que no depende de ti.
Plan your day, but always leave a space for the unpredictable.
Concéntrate en apenas una tarea a la vez. Por más ágil que tú seas, plantéate solo una tarea a la vez.
Concentrate on only one task at a time. No matter how good you are at many things, do one thing at a time.
Olvídate de una vez por todas de que eres indispensable en el trabajo, en la casa o en el grupo habitual.
Forget that you are indispensable, either at work, at home, or in your social groups.
Porque realmente, por más que eso te desgaste, todo funciona sin ti, a no ser tú misma.
Because no matter how much you try, you will...
Todo funciona.
Everything will work without you, but without you.
Deja de sentirte responsable por el placer de los otros. Tú no eres la fuente de los deseos, ni la eterna maestra de ceremonia.
Stop feeling responsible for the pleasure of others. You are not an eternal MC.
Pide ayuda siempre que sea necesario, teniendo el buen sentido de pedírsela a la persona correcta.
Ask for help as necessary, but having the good sense of asking the right person.
Separa problemas reales de los imaginarios y elimínalos porque son pérdida de tiempo y ocupan un espacio mental precioso.
Separate the real from the imaginary problems, as the imaginary ones occupy precious time and space.
Es importante intentar descubrir el placer de las acciones cotidianas como dormir, comer, pasear.
It's important to remember to enjoy the basic things in life, like sleep and eat and stroll.
Tu familia no eres tú, está junto a ti, compone tu mundo, pero no es tu propia identidad.
Your family is not you. It's part of your world, but it's not your only identity.
Es necesario tener siempre a alguien en quien poder confiar y hablar abiertamente.
It's always good to have someone with whom to confide, to speak openly.
Básico, muy básico es, conoce la hora acertada de salir de una cena, levantarte de un palco o dejar una reunión.
It's important to know about timing, good timing, when to leave a dinner, when to leave a meeting.
No quieras saber si hablaron mal de ti, ni te atormente con esa basura mental. Escucha a los que hablen bien de ti.
There's no need to know who spoke bad of you. It's a useless torment. Es mejor saber quién habló bien.
No quieras saber si hablaron mal. Escuchar a los que hablan bien de ti.
It's just only listen to the ones that speak well of you.
Una hora de inmenso placer sustituye con tranquilidad 3 horas de sueño perdido. El placer recompensa más que el sueño. Por eso no pierda una buena oportunidad de divertirse y esta noche tenemos fiesta.
1 hour of extreme pleasure takes the place of 3 hours of sleep. So enjoy pleasurable things. And by the way, tonight there's a dance party.
Entiende de una vez por todas, definitivamente y en conclusión, que tú eres lo que tú hagas de ti misma.
Understand definitely and in conclusion that you are what you make of yourself.
Las convoco realmente a que nos unamos y trabajemos con sororidad, ayudándonos unas a las otras, y así logramos la fuerza necesaria para transformar el mundo.
I call for us to work in sorority because it is that way that we have the power to change the world.
Yo ya me siento una mujer liberada.
I feel a liberated woman.
Entonces eso se puede lograr.
And so that can be achieved.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Before we conclude this plenary, I am going to take this moment to exercise a point of personal privilege. I'm going to ask that everyone remain seated, but the names that I call, please come forward. Zoe, Holland, Nikki, who is that in the back? Catherine, thank you. Alyssa, Anita, Abby, Robin, Rebecca, Caroline, Emily, Chloe, Becky, Kate, Bonnie, Doris, Jeanne, Paul, Terry, Caitlin. Am I missing anybody? Wait a second, I gotta check. Sparkle, on the stage. Sparkle Barrett, Paul Womack, Doris Stepp, Jan Erickson, Abby Green, she can't be in the room, I don't think, Anita Lederer, If I've missed anybody, I apologize. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Action Center staff and interns, the group responsible for the conference that you are attending right now, please stand. Thank you all very much.